Pierre Dugua de Mont. 43. Pierre Dugua led his first colonizing expedition to an island near the mouth of the St. Croix River. Among his deputies was a geographer named Samuel de Champlain, who immediately undertook a major exploration of the northeastern coast of the United States. 43. By the spring of 1605, under Samuel de Champlain, the new St. Croix settlement was moved to Port Royal, present-day Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia. 44. Champlain's residence in Quebec City, circa 1608. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain founded the settlement that would become the forerunner of modern-day Quebec City, which became the first permanent settlement and capital of New France. 45. He maintained personal control over the city and its affairs, and sent expeditions to explore the interior. 46. Samuel de Champlain himself explored Lake Champlain in 1609. In 1615, he sailed up the Ottawa River and through Lake Nipissing and Georgian Bay to the heart of Huron territory near Lake Simcoe. 47. During these voyages, Samuel de Champlain aided the Wendat's, Huron, in their battles with the Iroquois Confederacy. 48. As a result, the Iroquois became enemies of France, and the two sides engaged in several conflicts that ended with the signing of the Great Peace of Montreal in 1701. In 1583, the English under Humphrey Gilbert claimed St. John's, Newfoundland by royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I, the first English colony in North America. 50. During the reign of James VI and I, the English established additional colonies at Cupid's and Fairyland, Newfoundland, shortly after the first successful permanent English settlement in Virginia to the south. On September 29, 1621, King James VI and I granted a charter for the establishment of a Scottish colony in the New World to William Alexander. 52. In 1622, the first settlers left Scotland. They initially failed, and it was not until 1629, at the end of the Anglo-French War, that the permanent settlements of Nova Scotia became established. 52. However, under the Treaty of Suza, which ended the war in 1631, Nova Scotia was returned to France. 53. Following the signing of the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye in 1632, the French were fully restored to New France. This led to new French immigration and the establishment of a second permanent settlement in New France, Trois-Rivières, in 1634. After the founding of Quebec and then Trois-Rivières, European traders rapidly moved along the many rivers and lakes to trade with the Aboriginal population. During this period, the interior frontier of New France eventually covered a large area, with a loose network focused on the fur trade, missionary efforts to convert, the establishment and proclamation of an empire, and military efforts to protect and promote these efforts. 56. After Samuel de Champlain's death in 1635, the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuits became the most influential forces in New France and hoped to establish a utopian Christian community of Europeans and Aboriginals. 57. In 1642, the Saint-Sulpice sponsored a group of settlers under Paul Chaume de Villeneuve, who founded Ville Marie, the forerunner of Montreal. In 1663, the French monarchy took direct control of the colonies from the Company of New France. 59. Under direct French control, immigration to New France remained low. 60. Most of the population was peasant, and the population growth rate among the settlers was very high. 61. The average number of children per woman in New France was 30% higher than that of women in France. 62. The census of New France, conducted in the winter of 1665-1666, showed that there were 3,215 Acadians and habitants, farmers of French origin, in the administrative regions of Acadia and Canada. 63. The survey also showed a large gender gap, with 2,034 males and 1,181 females. Colonial Wars. Map of North America in 1702, showing forts, towns, and areas under European occupation. British, French, blue, and Spanish, orange. By the early 1700s, New France settlers were firmly established along the St. Laurent River and in Nova Scotia, with a population of approximately 16,065. However, as immigration from France had ceased for several decades, 66, 67, 68, the English and Scottish settlers in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and the 13 colonies greatly outnumbered the French population by approximately 10 to 1 by the 1750s. 60-69. From 1670, through the Hudson's Bay Company, the English also laid claim to Hudson Bay and its watershed, Rupert's Land, establishing new trading posts and forts, while continuing to operate fishing settlements in Newfoundland. The French expanded along the Canadian canoe routes, challenging the Hudson's Bay Company's claims, and in 1686, Pierre Troy led an overland expedition from Montreal to the shores of Hudson Bay, where they sought to capture several outposts. 71. La Salle's expeditions allowed France to lay claim to the Mississippi River Valley, where fur trappers and settlers established scattered forts and settlements. The 13 colonies in New France fought 4 wars plus 2 in Acadia and Nova Scotia between 1689 and 1763. During King William's War 1689 to 1697, military conflicts in Acadia included the Battle of Port Royal 1690, a naval battle in the Bay of Fundy, and the raid on Chignecto 1696. 73. The Treaty of Ryswick in 1697 briefly ended the war between the two colonial powers, England and France. 74. During Queen Anne's War, 1702 to 1713, the British invaded Acadia in 1710. 75, resulting in Nova Scotia, except Cape Breton Island, being formally ceded to England under the Treaty of Utrecht, and France also ceded Rupert's Land, which it had occupied since the late 17th century. 76. After this defeat, the French built the formidable fortress of Louisbourg on Cape Breton Island. 77. The governor of New France, Count Louis de Buade of Frontenac, refused British demands for surrender at the Battle of Quebec in 1690. Louisbourg was intended to serve as a year-round military and naval base for the remaining French territory in North America and to guard the entrance to the St. Laurent River. Father Raleigh's war resulted in the loss of New France's influence in present-day Maine. During King George's War 1744-1748, a New England army under William Pepperell brought 90 ships and 4,000 men against Louisbourg in 1745-78. The French at Louisbourg surrendered within 3 months. The French regained control of Louisbourg under the peace treaty that was promoted by the British to form Halifax in 1749-79. The British and French empires formally ceased hostilities with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle. However, conflict in Acadia and Nova Scotia continued with the Father-Le-Loutre War. 80. During the French and Indian War 1754-1763, Britain ordered the Acadians expelled from their lands in 1755, an event known as Le Grand Dérangement, in French 81. The expulsion resulted in approximately 12,000 Acadians being shipped to locations throughout British North America and to France, Quebec, and the French Caribbean colony of Saint-Domingue. The first wave of Acadian expulsion began with the Bay of Fundy campaign, 1755, and the second wave began after the siege of Louisbourg, 1758. Many Acadians settled in southern Louisiana, forming the Cajun culture there, 83. The British took control of Quebec City and Montreal in 1759 and 1760, respectively. British rule, 1763-1867. Main article, Canada under British rule. Map showing British territorial gains after the 7 Years' War. The Treaty of Paris is in pink, and Spain's territorial gains after the Treaty of Fontainebleau are in yellow. With the end of the 7 Years' War and the signing of the Treaty of Paris, 1763, France ceded almost all of its territory in mainland North America, except for fishing rights off Newfoundland and 2 small islands used for drying fish. In return, France received the sugar colony of Guadeloupe, which was considered more valuable than Canada at the time. 85. The new British rulers maintained and protected most of the property, religion, politics, and socio-cultural life of the Francophone inhabitants, guaranteeing the rights of Canadians to practice the Catholic faith and to use French civil law through the Quebec Act of 1774. George III of England issued the Royal Proclamation of 1763 after Britain acquired territory from France. 87. The proclamation established Britain's new North American empire and stabilized relations between the British monarchy and the Aboriginal peoples through legislation regulating trade, settlement, and land purchases on the western frontier. 87. The American Revolution and the Loyalists. See also Invasion of Quebec, 1775. and Nova Scotia in the American Revolution. British soldiers and Canadian militia repelled an American column at the Battle of Quebec. During the American Revolution, the Acadians and New Englanders in Nova Scotia were somewhat sympathetic to the American cause. 88. Neither side joined the rebels, but several hundred individuals joined the revolutionary cause. 88, 89. In 1775, the Continental Army launched an invasion of Canada, with the aim of removing Quebec from British control, but was stopped by British forces at the Battle of Quebec with the help of local militia. The British defeat at the Siege of Yorktown in October 1781 marked the end of the British effort to suppress the American Revolution. 90. A black loyalist lumberman in Shelburne, Nova Scotia in 1788. After the American Revolutionary War, the remaining British North American colonies saw an influx of loyalists. When the British evacuated New York City in 1783, they sent many loyalists to Nova Scotia, while others went to southwestern Quebec. As many loyalists arrived on the banks of the St. Lawrence River, the British were forced to flee to the North American colonies. John, a separate colony, New Brunswick, was created in 1784-91. By 1791, Quebec had been divided into the predominantly French-speaking Lower Canada along the St. Lawrence River and Gaspé Peninsula, and the English-speaking Loyalist Upper Canada, with its capital established at York, now Toronto, in 1796-92. After 1790, most new settlers were American farmers seeking new lands. Although they were generally Republican, they were relatively apolitical and remained neutral during the War of 1812. 93. The Treaty of Paris of 1783 formally ended the war, with Britain making a number of territorial concessions to the United States. 94. Notably, the Canada-United States was formally demarcated. 94. All territories south of the Great Lakes, formerly part of the province of Quebec, was ceded to the United States. The United States was granted fishing rights in the Gulf of St. Lawrence and on the coasts of Newfoundland and the Grand Banks. 94. Britain rejected part of the treaty and maintained its military outposts in the areas ceded to the United States, and it continued to supply ammunition to its native allies. Britain withdrew from the outposts under the Jay Treaty of 1795, but continued to supply ammunition, angering the United States. War of 1812, a depiction of Loyalist Laura Secord warning British and native troops of the impending attack on beaver dams, June 1813. The War of 1812 was fought between the United States and Great Britain, in which the British North American colonies were heavily involved. 96. Because of the British Royal Navy's superior firepower, American war plans focused on an invasion of Canada, especially present-day eastern and southwestern Ontario. The American frontier states supported the war to stop the First Nations raids that had discouraged frontier settlers. 96. Another goal could be the annexation of Canada. 97. The border war with the United States was characterized by a series of failed and disastrous invasions on both sides. American forces took control of Lake Erie in 1813, driving the British from western Ontario, killing the Indian chief Tecumseh, and breaking the military strength of Tecumseh's Confederacy. 98. The British observers were officers such as Isaac Brock and Charles de Salaberry, who were supported by First Nations and Loyalist informants, most notably Laura Secord. 99. The war ended with the Treaty of Ghent in 1814 and the Rush-Bagot Treaty in 1817. 96. A demographic result was that American immigrants moved from Upper Canada to Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. 96. After the war, British sympathizers attempted to suppress Canadian republicanism, which was popular among American immigrants to Canada. 96. Unsettling memories of war and American invasions were etched into the minds of Canadians, leaving them distrustful of American intentions regarding the British presence in North America.